I think about the moment where I realized I had a spiritual father. It actually occurred way after the relationship I even started.
That's true for me too.
There was never there wasn't this moment where I sat there and I said, I need a spiritual father. It was just this longing in my heart, right? This strong desire and heart cry. And I never went to Mark and said, hey, I need a spiritual father. Would you be my spiritual father? And we never had a discussion. There was no ceremony about it. There was no adoption ritual. There was nothing about it. It's just, I recognized his heart for me, and I recognized his true heart for the Lord. And my heart just said, I want to connect to that. Mm-hmm. I just want
almost
to
irresistible, it was magnet almost.
Yeah. That's the best way. I think about that point when you take two magnets, and as you're bringing them closer together, they become a lot less stable. They're shaking, and to that point where they get to that the no turning back point, that they just connect so quickly, and then they're bonded. Right? And there was no time where the magnet just said, "Hey, I want to be connected to you." They didn't have that conversation. No. It was the heart cry, right? The heart cry of, man, I need to understand my spiritual father, and I know a way to practically do that is to walk in a father-son relationship spiritually with a man, and I mean, it's not gender specific at all, but it's that father's heart that just cries out and says, you belong. This is home for you.
Oh, and I remember when I first started committing, when I first started, before I made decisions or before I thought about something or even moved in one thing, I would think, I wonder what Mark thinks about that, or I wonder what my dad, it started to change in my heart. It was actually a really long time so I could say dad, because I didn't want to dishonor my biological dad. I had a wonderful, and he's committed to me and he loves me, and I have a father-in-law who I love a lot. And so to me, I didn't, and they're not around this culture. They're not around this father-son culture. And so it would have felt to them, and maybe could feel to them, like I'm in some way replacing them. I'm not at all doing that. So it was very sensitive. But I remember when my heart first started turning in that way, and it started to pop up in my conversations, I was talking to Mark about this, or before I really move on that, or before I think about that too much more, I want to find out what the father's perspective on that is. And I remember specific occasions where people would say, you realize Mark isn't God, right? You realize that he's a flawed human. You're not, they get concerned for you. They don't understand. I remember that, and the Lord was so clear about that. Because of how committed he was to me, to who I am and what's in me, I'm safer fully committing, being all in with a spiritual father, and both his strengths and his weaknesses, both his abilities and his blind spots and his flaws, than I am to conference hop or to sample the strengths, or to skim off the top of a bunch of different leaders. Because even in his flaws, because my heart is so close to his, even his flaws bring me into maturity and draw me up. Even his weaknesses, and even he has tons of strengths, I'm not saying that, but even where he does fall short, even where those things, they bring me into maturity, because the Lord, those are opportunities to work on offense, opportunities for forgiveness, opportunities for deeper intimacy, all kinds of invitations to rid things out of my heart and to get my flesh stripped away from me. It's better to commit all in and give your whole life, and to just trust that the Father himself will develop that thing into a really healthy, dynamic relationship. Yeah, relationship.
That's really cool, because it's just a picture of how our spiritual father wants to deal with it. Outside of creation, there's not one miracle that I can think of that is outside of man's involvement. And that shows a picture of a father who has the power to do a thing, standing with his son who he wants the thing to manifest through. So he sits there and he's like, well, let's part the Red Sea. Moses, raise your hand. Or, you know what? The people are hungry. Bring a child to me. So in all these instances where miracles are happening, get up and walk, do all these things like that Jesus did, he never did it outside of relationship with man. And that is the truest sign of practical relationship with a father, is that a father can do it for you.
He just won't.
He just won't.
Yeah.
And it's so good that he won't. And you want to know something? There are times that he does. And there's times he does that so he could truly remind you of how valuable you are and how much he just wants to give to you as a son. But more times than not, he's saying, let's do this together. Even if it's just you holding the flashlight while I'm turning the wrenches, like, that's okay. That's okay. It's
Hop in the car and come along.
yeah,
Yeah.
hop in the car and come along.
Yeah.
Just be with me while I'm doing this thing. And the Father's doing so many things in the earth, and he's like, just hop in. Like, that's a son. Stand side by side with his father.
And we think that it's really important for you guys to understand, how do you recognize your spiritual father? This is really important moment, and I would say that your spiritual father is the person who invests in you the most, who helps your identity rise up. That's what I feel. And we call those people different names sometimes. Either this is a mentor, or it's a friend, or it's a relative, or a spiritual father. But this is the person who literally does not impose his own identity or like mantle on you, but helps your own to rise up. That's the only thing I can say from my experience.
Because I think so many times we get the sense that the spiritual father is the one that has the most talent or has
The celebrity?
the
Yeah.
celebrity, and we
It's
look
true.
for that person, right? And we long for that person, but it's really, it's that person that in the quiet places is sitting with you, speaking life into you, right? Fathers bring life, mothers bring life. That's what they do. They don't bring information. Like, information on an island is just information. But from a father's heart, from a mother's heart, when they bring something to you, it's life. And I think that person that you're talking about, the one that has invested, you know, they're not there for a quick moment,
Yes.
you know, and they're not just trying to forcibly impart something to you. They're there to grow something into you relationally.
It's a long-term
Yes.
commitment.
Yes.
They are in
Yeah.
with you.
Even like a lifetime
Yeah.
presence of a person.
Yeah. We all like to grab things from people, and we think it's impartation, and we'll get a prophetic word from somebody we don't know, and we're like, oh, that person imparted something to me. But truly, there's no impartation outside of relationship. No true lasting change, because it could all be just gongs and cymbals, right? Because it's just words coming out to you.
Well, and that goes back to what
Fathers.
she said about
Yes.
it's the person that is, what do you call it, raising up my,
My own identity
Yeah.
inside
not
of
his.
his.
Yeah.
His own, yes.
Which, I mean, if you look at the scripture, it says, raise up your children in the way that they should go, right? And so many times we confuse that with, well, I'm going to raise up my children in the way that I think they should go. And the true father is the one who says, well, let me learn about you as my child. Let me learn about you. And I think about, like, we talk about practical ways. I continually have to remind myself that even though Jonah is my son, I need to get to know him. And if I take it for granted that simply being his father means that I know him, I will miss out on the very quirks, idiosyncrasies, that's a perfect word, that make him, make him Jonah. And if I just pay attention, and that's what fathers do, and I think that's what you're talking about. Like, fathers are paying attention so that they're speaking into your life, so that they can guide you in the way that you should go, and not the way that they paved for you necessarily.
When she was saying about how do you recognize your spiritual father, to me, one of the most important things about submitting completely to a spiritual father is that he has never been willing to trade, like for me, like you said, Jonah, you have to learn Jonah. So for like he had to learn me, and one of my biggest challenges has been a performance mentality, like just doing, like just being so amazing so that you would be proud of me, you know, like earning your like, you know, whatever. And he knows that about me, so he intentionally starves me of the good job that I'm just always inherently asking for. I'm always asking for it. And so he has never been willing to trade my identity with my becoming. And so like,
that's good.
And so like, even though like I will probably accomplish great things in my life as a daughter, he knows my performance thing is in the way of that. Like other people who aren't fathers would just be like, you are amazing. I just love you so much. You know, and just kind of allow the veil of my good performances to hide what's really going on inside of me. But my spiritual father knows, no, see, what's compelling her, all her good works right now is she just really wants me to say, good job, and I'm proud of you. But as long as that's in her, she's never going to relax into the freedom of a daughter and the grace of a daughter. And like I love how you're going to say that, like that freedom of being a daughter. Like I'll never know that. I'll never know the freedom of that because I'll always be wrapped up in it. So like that's one of the most important things with me. Like I would have thought I was fine, but my spiritual dad knew that was a huge wall in the way of everything that I could be, or everything I already am, really, in my life and what that could be in the earth.
What a cool picture. We talked a little bit about earlier about how, you know, Jesus is standing there, he's getting baptized, and the Father comes and says, you know, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. And he only said that once, that it's written in the scriptures, because it was only that one time that it needed to come from outside, right, from this outside voice.
Kind of confirming Jesus, you mean? Okay.
He confirmed Jesus and said, this is my son who I'm well pleased. And now he wanted to put that in Jesus' heart. So now it wasn't, Jesus didn't need that coming from this way. It's nice, you know, but now it got into his heart and it was coming from this place out. Right?
And it was in whom I am well pleased, way before he did.
Before he did anything. He
You're
did one thing. He turned water into wine, which is an awesome thing to do. But he did that. He just really did that one thing, and now he's pleased because not because of the things that you did, but because you are my son. So now I confirm you, and now that confirmation is in your heart, and I get to operate from that place. And I love what you said, because it's not about giving you your identity. It's not your father, your spiritual father, and the Father is not about handing your identity over to you on a silver platter and say, this is who you are. He knows who you are, and he wants you to sit at that table, that feast, and explore it and get to know it and just to learn it and understand it and, you know, taste this of yourself and really allow it to come to life instead of me just baby feeding you. I mean, Jonah's 10 years old right now, and when he was 6 months, I loved spending time feeding him and baby feeding him. But I'll tell you right now, him at 10 years old, if I had to spoon feed him, I would be so annoyed as a father. So the father doesn't want to sit around and baby feed, like, or spoon feed his sons. That's not what he wants to do. He's so much invested in our maturity.
They really do not take, I don't know if this will, they don't take our identity for granted. They understand that our identity is in there, but the whole becoming process is where they roll up their sleeves and they're completely, like you said, for a lifetime committed to that. That's really cool.
And so, guys, practically speaking, I think that there is something that shows to others that you are a son, that you know that you're a son, and this is obvious, this is practical, this is tangible. And for me, one of the things that indicate that you're a son is your freedom from different kinds of bondage and just mentality, stumbling blocks and mindsets. And this is really important. And we do it through grace, because the Greek word for grace, it means enabling power. So it enables you to do it. It's not that you strive for it, you don't earn it. You just, the Lord enables you through love, through Holy Spirit. And many people just they have a tendency to think that grace is just unmerited favor, and you just have it and that's it. But if we look to the scriptures, and we will understand that grace is actually merited by disciplining process of sonship. That's
so
what
good.
I want to show you this through the scriptures, and this is in Titus chapter 2 verses 11 and 13. It says, "For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age." And then it says that while we are waiting for the Lord to come back. So literally this sustains you. Your testimony, it sustains you to release Jesus. That's what it is, this grace and disciplining process. So literally when the Lord gives you grace, it teaches you to, to do things right and to be in a self-control. That's what I think.
I love that. Grace is merited by the disciplined process of sonship.
Yeah.
Which I could marinate on that for a while. But there's something as sons that we need to receive discipline. So we could be disciplined, but if our heart is not postured towards the Father or our fathers, you can actually be disciplined and never receive the discipline that you're be given.
That's so good.
So there's one thing to be punished or disciplined. It's another thing as a son to see the value in discipline and then take that. And that's something into yourself.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, like you talk about practically, that I've been working on is this idea that, well, if my father is going to bring discipline to me, it's not because I need discipline necessarily, but he loves me. Like that is the true foundation of it all. It's not like I need to fix Ben, right? And I'm going to fix Ben by doing this, this, and this. It's not that at all. It's I love you so much that you're operating outside of your identity. So I want to bring some clarity back to you. All right? And it's not I need to turn you. I need to repent to you. I need to repent to you. It's here is some discipline for you to practice in your life all the time. And as a son, I get this awesome opportunity laid down to me to say, I take that, and like you said, I bring it inside of me, and now I operate from there.
And I found too that discipline is an invitation deeper into my father's heart.
Yeah.
Like both my spiritual dad's heart and the father's heart. Because it is attempting to divide. Like I think of Galatians, and like I think it's 3, he says, "Are you so foolish to think you were born by the Spirit and you'll be perfected by the flesh?" Like true fathering comes in and says, let me divide right here and make this cut that you're not going to like, and maybe try to remove things that you think are like supposed to be there. No, but like it comes in and it just invites you to align yourself with the heart of the true heart of your father. And so many times a spiritual dad is not enjoying disciplining you. He loves you a lot. He knows how you could respond. You're not necessarily one of his biological kids. So especially as adults, we have all kinds of freedom to be like, walk away, don't answer that text, don't answer the phone call, disappear for a while, throw the adult tantrum that we throw, and that is so hard on fathers when you respond that way. Sometimes a little bit of, like I told Mark, I'm starting a new thing where I'm not responding to his text right away, just because I find that I respond out of my flesh sometimes. So like, giving myself a minute to like bring out my real response. And I think that's healthy. But like to cut off a father's relationship with you in reaction to this discipline actually hurts their heart, because they came closer to pull you in and to chastise, to love you, to discipline you, and to respond well is so important, because it keeps that flow. It's brutal to respond to them. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. If you want to measure your sonship, take a hard look at yourself and get a true understanding of how much you value discipline.
that's really, yes.
Because we all want to say that we're sons, and we all want to do that almost on an island and say, yeah, I'm a son and I don't need to submit unto what the Father's saying. But the position of a son, and I use that position word, very...
Posture, maybe.
Yeah, or the posture,
Yeah.
that's even a better word. But the posture of a son always recognizes that there's a father's heart towards him. Always. And that's when we get into an orphan mentality, is when we kind of turn our heart to a different way, not recognizing that the heart of the Father is really for you. And the heart of our spiritual fathers are for us. And in all honesty, we've talked about this before, but to an orphan, sonship looks like arrogance. It truly looks like, who do they think they are? And it's not anything about who they think they are, it's who they know their father is. And
Yeah.
Yes.
if you know who your father is, you'll be able to receive discipline in such a way that you would consider it all joy, right? Even though it doesn't feel good. And a son is not relegated or doesn't limit themselves to learning by only the things that feel good.
Well, is that in Hebrews where it says, all discipline for a time, I remember that, but it's painful, but it produces righteousness. Like it divides away everything that is keeping your identity and that freedom and that grace. I love that. From actually activating in your life and being beyond just this thing that you kind of have this burning desire for. It sits in your belly and it starts to spring up. I love that. When I feel that now, I'm like, yes! I feel like I've been wanting that forever. This is taking a long time.
Where is that discipline? Father, bring discipline to me, because it is his language of love to you.
Right.
That he would say, wait a minute, we need to strip some things from this, because my son is cocooned. My child is cocooned in this, and discipline really is that process of taking the cocoon off, right? Coming out of the cocoon. It's not meant to hurt you, even though it hurts. And I just go back to that. You want to measure your sonship, measure your ability to really take and receive discipline and look at it as a good thing and as a gift.
Even earlier you hit this point about Jesus and when the Father imparted his love into him and formed him as a son. I think one of my fathers actually recently told me that this is like a third baptism. People usually think that there are two baptisms in the water, the Holy Spirit came upon him, but then he said, you are my beloved son. And that was the third impartation of love. And this love literally sustained Jesus to do what he needed to be doing. And for me, that's what it is, true fathership and sonship. My father helps me to grow in love, imparts love in me. But love, recently the Lord told me that love is a combination of impartation and discipline. And so how do you do this? If we look scripturally, love looks as a resurrection and...
Say that again. Love looks like resurrection.
Resurrection, yeah, it is a resurrection. So the Bible also positions this impartation of love as a resurrection, and it is being done through merging with the Holy Spirit who actually raised Jesus from the dead. So that's like a combination. It says in 1 John chapter 3 verse 14, we know that we have passed from death to life because we love our brothers. So that's what it is. So this discipline is just being together, just being in relationship. That's where this discipline comes from.
What a beautiful picture of how the Father deals with us and how you actually know a spiritual father. Because it wasn't until after the Father said, this is my son who I'm well pleased, that Jesus went into the wilderness. He couldn't have done that.
Interesting?
He couldn't have done that reverse. Jesus couldn't have gone to the wilderness and then the Father say, I'm pleased because you went into the wilderness and you disciplined. No, it was the Father confirming and affirming his Son that allowed him to go into the wilderness portion and then totally discipline himself. Because that was a place of discipline for Jesus is going to this place to, one, hear from his Father, but two, he knew that he was going to meet Satan there, right? And he was going to get tempted. So many times we put the cart before the horse. And we want to say you're pleased because you went through the wilderness. And no, it's actually that pleasing confirmation that allows someone to go into the wilderness. And that's such a different, if we did that, if more of us would do that with our sons, they would have the capacity to go through the wilderness portion of their life.
That's really cool.
And that's where I'm so thankful for my spiritual father, is that he set up this environment and this relationship where I didn't have to go through the wilderness first before he was pleased with me. It may feel like we're talking about fathering, but the son honors the fathering. And you know what? I mean, I even recognize, and even the mothering portions of who the father is, so much that they would just like, our conversations about sonship can't be separated or divorced outside of fathering and how we view fathering.
Yeah, that's really good.
So it's like, you can't talk about sonship without talking about fathering, without talking about mothering. And too many times what we try to do is talk about sonship on an island and in this vacuum of how I need to achieve sonship, and you cannot achieve sonship outside of these relationships.
No, you absolutely can.
You absolutely can't. It's a futile effort, and there's so many people spinning their wheels trying to conjure this up in their own strength, right, and their own power, their own understanding. And until it's aligned in proper relationship, the aha moment would never happen, because it's meant always to be in relationship. So if we get excited about our sonship and it turns into fathering, you don't have to go back and say, well, you know what, the fathers will talk about that. No. It's the sons talking about how fathering, how mothering brings up our identity.
Well, and I think that's the important part. And I think it's harder the older that we get, because we start to develop lives and obligations and responsibilities and schedules, and we have kids and all of these things. And so sonship is actually a difficult topic because it has everything to do with submitting at the most core level of who you are. And so we, especially in the U.S., and maybe this is true in Ukraine, I don't know, but we become independent. We start to thrive on that, I have a life and I have an entity unto myself. And I think everybody who's thinking about walking into sonship, everybody who wants to start walking in this sonship father culture, the very first thing you have to do is lay it all down and allow the Heavenly Father and spiritual fathers to restructure everything about how you think, what you prioritize, where you go, and how you spend your time. Because you have to acknowledge that you probably have blind spots. You probably have, you probably believe your own excuses. You probably lay down in places that you should be. You're biased to yourself. You're all of these things, and you just view yourself through the same lens you've always used. And I think there's a time, I remember Mark saying this one time, and it was so important for me as I walked into this. Would you be willing to not make any decisions, to check everything for a period of time, so that your spiritual father and you can start examining on the most basic level how you think? I was recently invited to, and I don't want this to be critical, but it is a question of how you think. I was recently invited to a gathering, and two of my spiritual fathers were going to be there, and Nick and I are both equally committed, so that's also helpful in my case. We're both equally committed, and because I think of Mary and Martha in those moments, choosing what is necessary and urgent over what is beneficial and what is important and most valuable. And so depending on what we would have had on our schedule that night, you have to really think. But if my spiritual dads, who are very busy guys and who are engaged with hundreds of lives and are creating an area that I can come and be with them, there are not many things for me that trump that. There just aren't. Because I believe that the Father's kingdom is first in my heart and in my life, and I believe that fathering and sonship are how he is bringing about the redemption of the family in the earth. And so that, for Nick and I, is our number one commitment. It's our number one. And so, like, and all the responses come back in, and there's lots of things that keep people from coming to those times. But like, it's a conscious decision for us to constantly reprioritize our life, that if those moments become available, they are first. Well, I say that careful that we also care for our children. We also care for our marriage. Like, I'm not sacrificing those things. But we find being in partnership to that single vision also keeps this right. It keeps us excited about where we are and where we're going. It doesn't make a lot of time for stupid stuff between the two of us, because we're both arm in arm looking this way together.
You cherish
and
the time.
We cherish it. And like, we get in the car after, we're like, oh my gosh, talk to me about how you're feeling about this. And he starts seeing this, and I'm feeling this way. And we make all in investments again, deeper in our own lives and in our own priorities and our finances and our time. And so like, even how you think and how you prioritize on the most basic level can rob you of really sonship rooting in here, because the excuses of life, this cacophony all around us, these things we're invited to, and parties and fundraisers and PTA and all these things, everyday life, like, I mean, it just tries to take all your time and gobble it up, and it's gone. But we as sons are in control. Like, he is the possessor of time, and so we have to walk that way. We have to prioritize and allow our spiritual fathers and the culture around the family to be first. Like, it has to be first. So I often think of that, like, I see it often where people are like, man, I want to walk more as a son. Man, I want to walk closer with my dad. But they make no steps toward altering anything about their life to trade it. Like, to trade beauty for ashes, to trade the lesser for the greater. And it's always like Mark said it here earlier today, the family culture isn't, how did he say it? It's not cheap.
That's right. It's basically...
It's going to cost something. It's sonship is not something, just like Jesus said, you can strap on. It's going to take all of you. Yeah. And it's so worth it. Like, it's meant to take all of you. And really, once you commit to that way, the lesser things naturally kind of rearrange themselves and naturally kind of prioritize themselves in better order. And then the whole noise of your life begins to be more of a glory to him, and not so much like, I'm going nuts, and my kids and my stuff and my money and all, it just starts to like settle into this, like, even in your own home, you start to walk as a son. You start to walk in freedom and grace of it, and you rule at home. Yeah. Which I think is the beginning point.
It's really good. It's like we said before, it's like resurrection. You said it's worth it, because without it you're not alive. Like,
without it, you are not alive. Yes.
My life literally started when I stepped into it. Before it was, I don't know, wilderness or whatever. But it's the most important thing in my life right now. That's for sure. And I see sonship as an investment process. Literally, what I love about sonship is not only like, I receive it, I give it to my fathers, I invest, I honor them, because there are certain things that only fathers can unlock in you, but there are certain things that only I, as a son, can unlock my father.
That's so good.
Because Jesus was the only son who could unlock Father's heart and show it to people. That's what it is with us too.
That is really good.
And here it is, we're thinking God. Well, God should be able to show his heart, and here it is. He needed a son. He needed a son to display that, like, I love you, and he needed a son to go to the cross and say, I love you, and then he needed a son to rise to say, now would you live it?
I wonder if that's what Jesus meant about when he said he was about his Father's business. I wonder if that's what he meant, like, if he knew the full wealth inside of his dad, and his sole purpose was to reveal that, to show that. I think about that a lot with them, because, like, regular religious church culture is, I need my ministry, I need my calling, I need my purpose, I need my destiny. And I think we often try to skip the sonship thing, where for a time you lay aside your lofty ambitions and you learn, I loved your words, fully submit to the vision of your Father. Like, have nothing else on your plate.
Yeah.
Fully submit, like tunnel vision, because that process of learning how to fully submit to the vision of someone else is what trains us to rise up as fathers and to further what they began, what's in us. Like, they raise up our our identity. But if we've never once submitted to somebody else, we will not know how to take our identity and to produce it into the earth, because we will never have helped anybody else's identity come forward.
I think on a practical level, I view my sonship as this continuing exploration or expansion of my capacity to love. And the Heavenly Father is so good that He knows that in order for me to expand my capacity to love, He needs to put people in my life that I don't easily love. So, so, like, I could sit with you guys here and say, well, yes, I love them, but we think alike, we view our Father and our sonship alike. So while it brings encouragement to me, it's not increasing my capacity to love. It's when I have these people outside of my life that would even question my sonship, or question the thing that I'm thinking, or the thing that I'm doing, or the process that I'm in, and for me to be in that place and still love, those are the great opportunities as a son to increase capacity. So we think about it, I mean, it goes back to the discipline portion. Like, discipline is practiced, right? You practice a discipline. It's not this moment in time where you get disciplined. But if I want to increase my capacity to love, and if I want to explore my sonship even more, I need to realize that people are going to come into my life that is going to test that. And there is such goodness in the testing. There is such love in the testing. And we look at trials and say, well, why do I, like, we lament them. Why do I need to go through this thing?
Absolutely,
And
have to. Yeah.
You know what? I don't judge anybody who in that time is lamenting, because I just went through 2 weeks of my life where I almost lamented everything. Like, I could have written Lamentations basically myself, and I had to stop myself by getting with my spiritual father and texting him and telling him, I don't have the capacity to do this right now. And him looking back at me and saying, yeah, you do. You're looking only to yourself. And the great thing about sonship is it comes with brotherhood. Like, sonship walks hand in hand with brotherhood. So now, sisters and brothers, like, I'm not walking this sonship thing alone. You're exploring your sonship, and you're exploring your sonship. And now I get, as a kingdom family, to reach out to the resources that are in both of you for even the most practical things in life. Not just like, well, I don't understand my identity. I don't understand the spiritual concept. No, it's just like, I don't have enough time in the day to complete this thing. I need your help. That's sonship in such a beautiful way that it doesn't need to be over spiritualized.
Well, and I love, orphans tend to take what they need,
Hoard it.
consume, hoard, and then go. With sons deposit as much as they're taking. So, like, walking with you guys, like, I have abundance, like, not even just spiritually, I have abilities, like, just natural things that serve you. You have natural things that serve me. And that brotherhood, you're so right. I never thought about that before, but being a son truly lets me tap in and interchange, like, to flow through.
What if we change the way we thought about the storehouses of heaven and got away from the thinking that it's finances, jobs, anything like that? What if the storehouses of heaven are the relationships and brotherhood that we're supposed to be maintaining, and that's unlocked when you see your sonship, when you understand your sonship? that's more valuable than the Lord just blessing you with a check that comes in the mail that meets the exact need.
And you're still lonely.
And you're still
Yeah.
lonely, and then you run out of money again, and you're in the same place that you're asking, Lord, I need this much, I need that much to get me out. But he opens up the storehouses of heaven, and they look like you. They look like Lydia.
That's really good.
Right? And it opens up, and a bunch of money doesn't flow out, but a bunch of people, a bunch of brothers come out. And that's what he has stored up. And he's not like he's holding it back from you. He's waiting for that point for you to realize your sonship. And when you realize your sonship, your access to your brothers is so much greater. And that is...
And the true access, not
Yes.
just like scarfing off the top, but a real exchange.
Yes.
It's awesome. One thing that was really important to me and is constantly important to me is that when I sit down or call or text my spiritual dad with a question or a life thing, their counsel back to me becomes how do I say this? I'm good at all my own excuses. I'm good at all my own reasons why not. And all of my things seem hard. But when my spiritual dad comes and says, this is how I'm viewing what you're seeing, I now I take myself and I move to look from their perspective. Because I think we have this case sometimes where we tend to treat spiritual dads like counselors or friends or commiserators, and we like say, here's how I'm suffering, and please make me feel better, and we take what they tell us and it makes us feel better, like, because the attention makes us feel better, but we don't actually take the wealth of what they're giving us and incorporate it inside and let how we're viewing things change. So I never wanted my dad to have to say things twice to me. And every once in a while he does, but it's not because I'm being stubborn, it's because I'm dense. And I needed to hear it a couple of times. But like if I understood it, I want to take it in and adjust myself, like completely submit to that viewpoint and adjust how I'm looking at it, because I don't want to take them for granted. I've seen them have to give the same advice to the same person several times over and over, and I feel like that's so dishonoring of who they are. I feel like it's like right now what's needed in this moment are not my excuses. I already know those. What's needed in this moment are not my hang-ups, because I already know those too. What's needed is a fresh perspective that sets me free to think differently. And so I have to and that's just a position of the heart, just to trust them so much that I'm willing to lay aside my understanding of this thing and to take on a different understanding.
And also, both their spiritual fathers has recently passed away. And for me, I see what kind of pain they feel. I mean, it's a good pain. It's a natural thing. People need to go home. Yeah, but I mean, I see that if your spiritual fathers are with you right now, please cherish them. They are treasure. And as long as they're with them, we are with them. We just need to,
I agree.
Just invest everything we can. Because,
So I wouldn't even know how to close this, because there's just so much more, right?
Oh yeah, we just started.
But I'm so humbled and thankful that the Father has given us the opportunity to walk in a son relationship and to view us as so valuable that he wants to partner with us in these things. And if I bring that one from the Father's level, but then down to just a human interaction level, that there are men and women out there operating so closely to the Father's heart that they want to walk in relationship with us as sons too. Because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And you talked about earlier, it's never a joyful thing to bring that discipline. I mean, if it was, that's a little creepy if it was. But they see the value in us as sons to bring those things. And my heart is overwhelmed at fathers, both male and female, mothers, just those spirits that would break through all the religious stuff and say, well, we need to raise up a generation. We need to we don't have to preach at a generation. We don't have to We don't have to do any of that stuff. We need to raise up a generation. And that's what my heart is truly, truly thankful for. And even as a son right now, longs for and continues to long for. So I don't think there'll be a time where I ever don't long to be a son.
No.
Ever.
It's like it's in your DNA.
It's in, yeah.
Yeah.